Into the quarries of Hellpit do we march today under the green glow of the Chaos Moon, as the lizard armies of Mark Zuckerberg clash with Orion and the Wood Elves. For their part, the Azrai have become quite adept at rushing since the Twisted and Twilight dropped. They're a lot more dangerous on the move, and have the tools to make things hard no matter how they choose to bring the pain. So the Lizardmen will have their claws full trying to deal with the storm about to come their way. What they need is a brick wall in defense, so why not bring the Rock of Itza himself? Dwayne Gorak Johnson, the Pale Death, is here to hold the line for the Children of the Old Ones, and he's brought his full kit: the Mace of Ulamak, the Shield of Eons, Stand Your Ground, and the Rock of Itza, to give him a good shot at bringing someone like Orion low, should they challenge each other in a duel, of course. He is leading a full army of skinks and Saurus with shields, and 2 ballista stegodons, which can snipe out someone like Darthu and mess up great stags or wild riders from downtown. Probably a bit more common to see solar engines in the artillery slot for the Lizardmen, but on a map like this one, with lots of shot blockers and dips in terrain, going for monsters that can handle themselves better in melee makes a lot of sense. Laura Beastcaster, Flock of Doom, and Kadon, tons of infantry and chameleons, which are of course a staple in this matchup. And for the Wood Elves, it's a full Vanguard rushdown, and like I said, they've gotten a lot better in the rush department. And the unit that changed the game the most for them was the one that you didn't have to pay for: Glade Riders with Azrai Spears. Still a little salty they don't have AP, because the entire point of an Azrai Spear is that it is armor piercing. That's why Spear, War Dancers, and Eternal Guard also have AP, but at the same time, the fact that they have good base stats and come at a cheap price point is probably more useful to the faction overall. And they've made the Wood Elves even better at shutting down an opponent's skirmish phase and artillery. So we'll see 4 of them here, alongside the Wild Hunters of Kurnis, Great Stag Knights, a Branch Wraith, Glade Captain, the Wardens of Sithrall, and Orion himself, rocking the Horn of the Wild Hunt. And as is always the case with full Vanguard, speed and aggression are the keys to victory. Just like the Beastmen, if they run out of momentum too early, it can be challenging for them to claw their way back into a game. They do not do well in the grind, in the muck, in the trenches, but they have the violent speed and momentum for that to not really matter in the slightest. If they're able to use the Horn of the Wild Hunt at the right time and take out some high-value targets quickly, then they can use that mobility to get around and really make you suffer. But with that said, the Horn of the Wild Hunt was not popped on this initial charge, either temporarily forgotten about or waiting for a more opportune time to use it. You can tell this Vanguard ambush has completely caught the Lizardmen off guard, but they're responding to it pretty well. Saurus and its king cohort swarming to their right flank, Transformation of Kadon already summoned, Manticore about to come their way, and a Stegodon out on this side, using its mass and terror to cause some problems for the Wild Hunters of Kurnis and the rest of the Light Cav, diving into the squishy center of this Lizardmen formation. And the way the map's set up, it's also going to make it a lot more difficult for the Wood Elves to dive in and completely overwhelm a flank. There's not a lot of room to get completely around and get into the rear. They have to go through the Lizardmen, and of course Saurus are not going to let that happen too easily. The Horn of Kurnis is blown. It is active at the moment, but it was popped after the Great Stags and the Glade Riders had already made initial impact, which is interesting. Probably forgotten about just for a couple seconds right at the start because there was so much else being microed, but here, the Wardens of Sithrall have a beauticious engagement alongside that Stegodon. This is exactly where they want to be, and this is why these Vanguard ambushes can catch an opponent completely off guard. Using their stalk, meaning they're invisible up until a pretty short distance away, although Lizardmen do have those instincts that allow them to see those a little bit further away, but there's so much going on right now, he hasn't noticed that one of the highest melee attack anti-large armor-piercing infantry units in the game is directly on top of his dinosaur, and if that Stego doesn't pull away quickly, it's going to be in for a world of hurt. Nice Flock of Doom coming in from the Skink Priest of the Lore of Beasts, and this is about to get even more nightmarish for the dinosaur. Great Stag, Glade Captain, Orion, Wardens of Sithrall. That is a brutal combination, and indeed the dinosaur will rout almost immediately under a torrent of stabbing spears, and look at that HP bar plummet. Caught him just completely with his pants down. Very well played with the Vanguard so far. Great Stags coming in from the rear, but the Lizardmen look like they might be able to stabilize here. They did a good job blocking up, soaking up the charges of those Great Stags and Glade Riders in the initial ambush, and now their cohorts are swarming and stuffing up the Dryads in the front rank. So, Wood Elves have done what they wanted to do for sure. They were able to break into the center, but now that that initial charge has worn off, Now that the Horn of the Wild Hunt is no longer active, the Lizardmen can drag them down into the muck and force them into a war of attrition, which is not where the Azrai like to be. And the big dinosaur, if he's supported well by Gorak the Great White Lizard and the rest of the Saurus with shields, they should be able to hold the line pretty well here, and you can see a lot of the Saurus are still full HP. Chameleon Skinks firing in from the flanks. They will do quite a number on the Wild Riders and the Great Stags, as well as the Dryads, as Hawk's Talon comes down from above and skewers a couple unfortunate Lizard Boys. Great Stags being torn apart by the withering fire coming in from those Chameleons. They will make contact. Earthblood should be able to keep them in the fight, and their silver shields are certainly helping a lot. But that looks painful for the Great Stags back there, and they are taking quite a lot of casualties, while the Wardens of Sithril and Orion are doing their damnedest to collapse the outside of this Lizardman box and force themselves into the center of the Tootsie Pop, where they can really make Gorak and that Stegodon suffer. Saurus are holding admirably, but I don't think they'll be able to do so for much longer against all this AP and all this attack power. Both Orion and the Wardens well over 60 melee attack, and that means they are, well, they're inundated, they're swarmed, and with the rear charge from Dryads, it's not making things any easier. Stegodon is still online and quite healthy at the moment. You can see Lizardmen done a great job of lowering the HP on those Wild Hunters of Kurnus and on the Great Stags, which are the two most important cavalry units on the Wood Elves side of the field. But again, the way this map is set up, Lizardmen were already very close to that white line, so if they're able to chase off any of these Chameleons or Skink Cohort, it's a short hop, skip, and a jump over to the white line. But that could be a problem for the Wood Elves as well. The Great Stags and Wild Hunters each around 90 speed, so if they rout, and both did just rout, well, they can run off the map incredibly quickly themselves. So definitely something the Wood Elves have to worry about. Orion now dueling with Gorak and the Stegodon, while the Wild Hunters of Kurnus were deleted from the game. Chameleons and Skink Cohort fighting back-to-back, throwing some javelins in there, and finishing off the low armor of those angry deer people. Orion is okay for now while the Wardens of Sithril are active. You can see the Great Stags routing off in the background. It looks like they will return. But once those Wardens are dealt with, then Stegodon might be able to do okay with them now the Saurus and Gorak are there too. Well, this could get scary for the King in the Woods. Actually, there's a Glade Ride Spear unit coming in from the rear, which has been hiding in the back of the map this entire time. Earthblood on the Great Stag Knights. I don't know if those Azrai Spear Light Cav were hanging out because they wanted to do a late game ambush. There is something to be said for that, if you just hold on to a unit for this situation once the battle lines have started breaking down. But it's just as likely they were forgotten about until about 4.5 minutes into this game. I'm not sure which. Either way, they've got a full strength light cav unit that can run down Chameleons or the Skink Cohort. So that's big. That could change things for the Wood Elves for sure, because they have lost their momentum. Nice rear charge coming into the Saurus, and that will be enough to break them completely. But yeah, we saw Orion having to duel the Stegodon and Gorak the Great White Lizard, and that has meant he is plummeted to the HP threshold for the Cloak of Isha, unleashing his Hounds of Kurnus on an unsuspecting world. But here's the thing. Orion got physical resistance in the Twisted and the Twilight, 20%, and so when you combine that with his Cloak of Isha ward save, he is incredibly tanky when he's below 1000 HP now. He is super hard to kill because he's getting stacking ward saves. Physical resistance and a ward save on top of that, and the regeneration and heals from the branch wraith. So Orion, even though he looks like he's close to death, well, it's deceptive because, well, the Wood Elves Lord, the King in the Woods, is actually not very easy to kill at all anymore. Still, pretty balanced game so far. Stegodon looks like it might be able to return. There are some units here that should be able to absorb the charge of the Great Stags and prevent them from chasing it all the way to the edge of the map, but it's gonna be close. It's super close to the white line at the moment. Orion is running away from Gorak, which he can do. He has 55 speed, while Gorak the Great White Lizard is quite a bit slower. That is the biggest advantage Orion has at this point. In a straight up fight, Gorak would be able to finish him off, but it looks like the Great Stags will be able to run the Stegodon off the map as well. Is that a nail in the coffin for the Children of the Old Ones? I don't think so. Looking at what they have left, I think the Wood Elves will struggle to deal with Gorak himself. The Glade Captain is alive, the Great Stag is stomping its way over, and for some reason, it has armor piercing while the Glade Lord does not while it's on a Great Stag. I'm pretty sure that is bugged at the moment. Glade Lords should have armor piercing. I don't know why they don't. Probably just a mistake from CA's part, but at the moment, Orion is getting his ass beat. Crumped, for sure. And the balance bar is reflecting that. Great Stag Knights just routed off for the second time. Big Hawk's Talon about to rain down. Oh, Saurus, get out of the way. Okay, that wasn't too painful. Mostly dodged. Well done there. But remember, Orion has the speed to run circles around Gorak the Great White Lizard. While the Rock of Itza, the Mace of Ulamak, and the Shield of Eons are active, he is a world beater. One of the stronger footlords in the game. And if he can land a killing blow on Orion here, that would be huge. But remember that Orion's getting like 60% physical resistance reduction at least with the ward save and base physical resistance active. So this is a hard fight for Gorak, and in fact, it was enough to kill him off completely. Gorak managed to rout off the Great Stag, managed to put Orion down to about 400 health left, but everything is routing for the Lizardmen now, and the bounce bar immediately after Gorak went down swung in the favor of the Azrai. And I'm thinking at this point they don't have anything left that can deal with the King in the Woods. That Cloak of Isha paying huge dividends in the late game, and it has really made him an incredibly difficult lord to deal with. Orion was a solid choice before, definitely good in some matchups, and I think he was pretty solid against the Lizardmen as well, but adding that 20% physical resistance to him really changed the game. Alongside the changes to the Horn of the Wild Hunt, gave him so much utility, map-wide charge bonuses for Great Stag Knights, for Azrai Spear Glade Riders, for your Wild Riders. That's a huge deal. That makes them way more impactful on the charge, and then you get Orion low, you're saying, oh, I got the ability to goon him out, no problem. But he can run circles around most enemy lords, and unless you have something heavy that can tie him down and surround him in the late game and punch through all that physical resistance and that ward save, it's going to be hard to kill him. And if he's alive, well, he's causing problems because he hits like a truck and he's unbreakable. So he'll hit you a lot. It has been interesting to see this shift towards more rush-centric builds for the Wood Elves. It used to be just spread the field and kite with a bunch of Waywatchers, but the Twisted and Twilight has made them a lot more dynamic, and it really has plugged a lot of holes and a lot of matchups that were kind of bad for them in previous patches. Obviously, we've seen the addition of Zotes make a huge impact in the Bretonia matchup, and I like the fact that they can rush now and do a pretty damn good job of it, too. They're still glassy, they still die pretty easily, but they hit really hard, and they have a lot of armor piercing, which is always fun. For the Lizardmen, I think they responded to that Vanguard ambush pretty well, but I think there were two main issues there. One, I think they were perhaps lacking one or two cav units that would have really helped them deal with the Glade Rider Azrai Spears. Just something to protect your back line a little bit more. They did not have a lot of mobility in this game, but they did use their Chameleon Skinks very well. We saw one of them earn a Chevron. All of them got good damage value in this one. The other problem was, of course, the Stegodon that got like no value whatsoever. And of course, you were not expecting to see a full Vanguard rush there. Most players usually aren't. This Stegodon wasn't in the right location. We saw the Wards of Sithral close on it immediately. Orion and the Glade Captain got on top of it right after. And if you let all three of those units attack your dino, well, it ain't gonna be long for this world, playa. Not something Stegodons are designed to thrive in, and it looked pretty painful to see that HP bar plummet so quickly. Stegodons by themselves in a duel with Orion will actually perform admirably well. They'll actually sometimes get him very low. We saw that when Gorak was nearby. We saw a Stegodon that earned a Chevron do well in its fight with Orion. So just make sure the Wards of Sithral aren't there. Pull that Stegodon back, get it out of there quicker, support it a little bit better, and I think Lizardmen have a very good chance to deal that extra 350, 400 damage to Orion and take this game. It's a very close one, very exciting one. Good game to Romulan Dog and Aneurysm Sauce, and I'll be bringing you plenty of more content very soon. Hope you guys enjoyed.